Keeping an eye on the economy now at the Capitol, Congress continues to hammer out to work out a federal budget before the September 30th deadline. And there are new developments in the auto workers strike. The United Autoworkers are in their 6th day of striking against the big three automakers. Negotiators are back at the table today. And joining us now to weigh in on this and more is Joel Griffith, Senior Research Fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Joel, good to see you as always. A lot to get to here, but first, let's start with this federal budget. House Republicans put forth a plan that would balance the federal budget over a decade, but that likely won't make it through the Senate. Where do you see this going?
Well, unfortunately, even that balanced budget proposal is scant on details. And we've seen Republicans and Democrats come together far too often over the past several years to greatly expand federal spending. So I think having a plan is a start, but Republicans need to hold firm, particularly conservatives that are in Congress. One of the amendments has to do specifically with the border crisis, and we need to be able to focus on that more firmly. A lot of what the other side, the Democrats in particular, put forward when it comes to the border is actually just going to provide a lot of social services for those who are here illegally, and it does nothing to actually strengthen our border security. I think it's imperative that conservatives in the House and in the Senate hold firm and demand that any potential budget agreement includes funding to truly get border security under control.
Joel, do you think we'll actually see a government shutdown? And if we do, what would be the impact for everyday people, including those who are maybe less fortunate and rely on federal programs like, say, SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program? I mean, will they still be able to get help?
Well, we've seen numerous government shutdowns over the past several years, including all of your listeners. And most people were not even aware when the government did shut down. I think it's important to note that if there's a partial government shutdown, our military continues to operate, Social Security benefits, Medicaid, Medicare, all those payments continue to go out. And through all of this, we need to remember that our government does not have a revenue problem. We are at near all-time record tax revenues, both in terms of dollars collected, but also in terms of dollars collected relative to our economic output. What we have is a spending problem. We already had one prior to COVID. We saw spending explode during COVID, and it has really continued to be a huge problem throughout the Biden administration. If you look at the amount of money we're spending right now, just on the interest on the federal debt each year, we're talking about $10,000 per family of four. And the amount of money that we're borrowing this year alone to fund our federal operations is $25,000 per family of four. We're spending $80,000 per family of four. Each person listening tonight should ask themselves, are they truly getting $80,000 worth of government services in exchange for all that spending? I think the answer is a resounding no.
Joel, we have probably about a minute left or so. I quickly want to pivot to this, the auto workers strike. I want to get your take on that, and what type of impact do you think this is having?
Well, the strike is having a big impact already. We've seen hundreds of layoffs, thousands more are likely to follow. And these layoffs don't just impact the big three automakers. It has an effect all the way down the supply chain to the many hundreds of suppliers to these big three auto dealers. The big labor bosses, once again, are putting their own interests first. And I'm talking about the interests of the labor bosses and not the interests of the consumers, the businesses, or the employees. The typical employee right now at a big three auto worker earns around $60 per hour when you factor in benefits. The unions are demanding an increase in labor costs of close to 40-something% over the next few years. They could actually increase labor costs to $150 per hour. There's just no way that this can be afforded without severe future layoffs. Ford, for instance, has already offered close to 20% pay increases, and they've offered to ensure that those pay increases are protected for inflation. But the union bosses are demanding more. They're centered on themselves, and this is a big reason why we've seen so many factories and so many jobs move to more business-friendly parts of the country, in places like South Carolina and Tennessee, as factories close and move from places like Washington State and Michigan, where these big labor bosses have so much control over the economy.
Yeah, we'll continue to watch it and see what happens next. Joel, thank you so much for joining us. Always appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.